don't have my little reminder thing of what we're supposed to do, but why don't we just stand up and we can do the Pledge of Allegiance, I know that. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I do have the announcement.
You know what department?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I have that, thank you. Okay, let me do some announcements first. The Merrimack Town Council offers our condolences to the family and friends of Dan Biddle Sr., who passed away on Thursday, January 8th at the age of 74. Dan was actively involved in the community, notably serving as a member of the Merrimack Village District Board of Commissioners, the Rotary Club of Merrimack, as well as on the Board of Directors of the John O'Leary Adult Community Center. He was instrumental in the planning and preparation of the town of Merrimack's 4th of July celebration for many years. Dan will be greatly missed. May I have a moment of silence, please? Thank you very much. I was just at the wake and I was telling his wife, every time I think of Dan and when you talk to people, people smile. They all have a very positive memory of him. And I think we should all remember that if half of us would have that memory when we go, that would be great. Okay, other announcements. Thursday, January 15th at 6 p.m. here in the Matthew Thornton Room, the budget meeting, which will involve the library, town clerk, tax collector, community development, media, assessing, general government, and proposed issuance of debt and revenues. On Monday, January 19th at 6 p.m., again in this Matthew Thornton Room, another budget meeting. And on Thursday, January 22nd at 7 p.m., there'll be a regular council meeting. This evening, the departments that we will talk about during the budget, for the budget, are welfare, public works administration, highway, solid waste disposal, equipment maintenance, buildings and grounds, wastewater treatment fund, parks and recreation, and summer day camp. Are we going to be doing them in this order? Okay. Unless we want to do it otherwise, and I don't know why we would. Does anybody? Okay. Yeah, I think absolutely. Eileen?
It might be a little premature to do this because, well, maybe it's not. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a theme that you'll be seeing throughout the budget in terms of some of the larger ticket items. Health insurance generally went down because all of the employees are changing to, except for one union, are changing to a new lesser a plan with lesser benefits, and they're all paying 10% now, whereas before it was different. So in general, the health insurance, you'll see that going down. Retirement, you'll see that going up. All categories of employees went up. I believe the police are now at 26%, and the fire department is at 29-point-something%. You'll also see electricity and natural gas going up, and workers' comp in general has gone down overall. So you'll see that throughout the budget in different personnel lines.
Excellent. Okay, so if we're going to be going in order, we'll start with welfare, which is number 25 on our budget sheets. And hi, Pat. As we all try to turn to, like at my new computer here, trying to figure out how to get to the paperwork. Maybe I should have asked for this. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe I should.
Pat, go ahead.
That's what I did.
Absolutely.
I'll just do mine first, Pat, if you don't mind. In general terms, again, let's see, where I am. Welfare. You will see an increase of $400 in total. The total budget has gone up $117. That is pretty good. The wages have gone down a little bit because we were trying to make Pat's hours coincide with the regulations of the Affordable Care Act that determines what a full-time versus a part-time employee is. And you can see the list of social service agencies going down $1,300 and housing going up $2,000. That's all I had to say. Is there anything you want to say about that?
No,
Before we start,
I would say, that's a summary of it. The only thing that really wait, turn that on. They see, hear me better now?
thank
The
you.
only thing, I did have to put in for an increase for the housing because as you see, I overspent the housing budget from last year. So that was very unusual. Not too sure if that will continue, but sometimes that is a trend, when I see it 2 years in a row increase like that. So that is the only reason I had to increase that budget line item.
Okay, any questions from any council members? Yes, Tom?
Yeah, on page 117, you've got two heating assistance lines in here, electrical, and they both have, each has a separate number. Okay, what are we dealing with here in terms of the designations?
The designations is that, that is the donated account for heating, electricity and assistance. The difference between, there is no difference between the two numbers, 8892, 000. The last four is the designation.
Right.
The 4441 is the state code for public welfare, and the 000 is the code for donated donations. Since we're budgeting the money through the budget, that's why we're using the code 4441, which is the designation for the state. The designation one for the state.
Which one is in our budget here?
The designation from the state, the $1,500.
I only have one line, in the spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet, right, that's on the summary that comes out of my financial system.
Everybody got a book except you and I, Tom.
We didn't ask.
We didn't ask, I agree. That's all right.
He gave me a thumb drive, too.
Well, I'm working on a thumb drive, so. Okay, any other questions?
I've got several,
Do you have several questions, just several?
No,
Okay,
several thumb drives.
okay. Any other questions? None. Pat, you got off easy tonight. Way to go.
Yeah. Well, Paul only gave me 5 minutes anyway.
Okay, next is going to be Public Works Administration, which is number 7.
This is one of the most stable budgets we have.
Yeah, it is.
Everybody wails in other communities wail and moan about it, but ours is pretty steady.
If I'm doing an incorrect number, Paul, make sure you let me know. Eileen, did you want to do a summary on this as well?
Okay, Public Works Administration, is that where we are?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. You can see that there are no increases for the staff because nobody's getting a raise this year unless they get a step or unless they get a step. So the part-time wages, I believe that is for the interns that we get in the summer, which is a wonderful bang for the buck. Is that correct, Rick? Yes.
Yes.
You can see health insurance went down, workers' comp went down, very small amounts here and there, for a total decrease in the budget from last year of $54.
Okay, anything you want to add before we start?
Usually, year to year, I usually give a highlight before every division, but there's nothing really to highlight here that hasn't already been spoken.
Okay, questions from the council? Bill?
Thank you. It's just an observation. There's been a significant uptick in the phone. Can you talk about that over the last couple of years?
We've gone
Specifically-
to smartphones over the last few years,
Okay.
transitioned into those. So obviously, the price for a smartphone is, I think, $85 a month versus 45 or 49.
It's 85 versus 40, so
Yeah.
it's an uptick, and with these days, with our smartphones, we get unlimited data, unlimited texting, and all that stuff, so it's great when Kyle's in the field and he needs to look at a picture or a plan, he can pull it up on his phone.
Who are assigned phones on the DPW staff?
Those two gentlemen right there. For admin,
I'm sorry?
those two for admin,
In administration, the other ones are in
the highway budget themselves.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anyone on this side? Going, gone. I can't believe we went through that. Okay, while you're here, number 8, highway. It probably is worth a comment that this really is, first of all, a very good budget. They're really, it's paper thin, very little change, and the changes we've been notified before. So it's not as if we're not questioning things, but so far as it's obvious, we can't question a lot of it because it's right on the money. So having said that, yes, Dan.
I'll give my 2 cents since you brought it up.
Uh-oh.
No, well, because people we probably go through this every year, but you know, we get a budget book, and everyone's for the people at home. And if we're all being good counselors, we've been doing several hours of work since we've got it. So people at home, if we're not asking any questions, it's because we were given a really good budget, and if we had questions along the week, we'd make a phone call to your office, get an answer to it. So. For clarification,
Exactly.
I think maybe it should be said to people who are paying attention. They're going, "Wow, what the heck's going on?" And
Exactly.
just like rubber stamping it.
That's why I wanted to make that point.
Perception is reality, as they say. So, thank you.
Eileen.
The other thing that I would like to say is that early on, I asked for direction from the council as to what you want to see as far as the budget is concerned. So the department heads are given the assignment of preparing a budget that they feel are their needs, and then I look at it, meet with them, and make some cuts. So it's not like it's going right from the department heads to you. You'll see their lines. They've been told that if there are things in there that they feel strongly about, that they should lobby for them. But it's not going from them to you. It's going from them to me to you.
Correct. Okay, having said that, Eileen, do you want to give a summary on this?
Hourly wages, I don't know what that is. Hourly wages went up. Oh, went down, never mind.
Well, that was because of retirement.
Oh, because of a retirement, yeah. We had a long-term employee that was here, and we will be replacing that person with somebody that is lower, paid and lower. We have increased overtime for supervisory and for regular employees, and the reason why we've increased them is because they're more in keeping with what actually is spent, relating to snowstorms and things that we can't really control. Then you see retirement went up, as we expected. Health insurance went down. Dental went down. Workers' comp went down, as we said, and unemployment went down. Electricity, as I said, and gas up a little bit. Vehicle fuel up a little bit. Salt and sand, again, up a little bit based on our actual usage, trying to get it closer to the actual usage. If you look at the historical information, you can see that it's been under budgeted by quite a bit for a while. And then infrastructure, what is that?
That's the, that's road paving
Road paving,
and,
up $10,000.
right.
Okay, and capital reserve fund deposits, is that correct?
Yes.
Up $210,000, and capital reserve fund purchases down $978,000. So from a point of view of, now this is where this little handy chart comes in with all the colors, is highway, if you pull out all of those unusual things like capital reserve fund deposits in and out, which really create from one year to another skewed version of what really occurs. The highway budget went up $29,246, which is a 1.919% increase in terms of operating budget. And they relate to those things that I just went through with you. That's it.
Would you like to add anything?
Just a couple of things. A couple of the major capital items. The Bean Road Bridge at 1.6 million is in the capital section of the budget for highway. Also, DW Highway paving from Hills Ferry Road all the way down, Hills Ferry area to Chamberlain Bridge. And also a couple vehicles, one six-wheel dump truck and one front-end loader. And that's it, Madam Chair.
Okay, questions? Yes, John?
So, thank you. And it's really hard to find stuff to query about. So just talk to me about streetlights, would you? I mean, it looks like over the past 6 or 7 years, it's been $90,000 plus or minus. Now it's 110. What's different this year?
The electricity rate, primarily.
Is that whole
That's-
raise? I mean, it's been steady for the last 3 or 4 years, and we went through an effort to try and figure out, could we reduce streetlights and shut off some and stuff like that, and now the rate's going up. That kind of an amount?
We had-
That's the only difference is the electricity charge?
We had some changes where we converted over an older, mercury vapor to high-pressure sodium on the Front Street, Center Street area. A few years back, you might remember that was actually a capital purchase, or capital expenditure anyway, about $10,000. So we actually consumed a little bit less, but then very largely offset by the rise in electricity cost.
A bunch.
Yeah. PSNH right now is getting caught in what they call the gambler's routine in the electrical industry. A lot of companies like us, the town of Merrimack, we have a third-party provider for our electricity. In the wintertime, they can't match the rate that PSNH is. So what happens is that, for instance, winter rate might be 15 cents per kilowatt. PSNH has you locked in at 9.5 cents. So they're losing 6 cents per kilowatt on it. Companies will jump off their contract like we do, jump on PSNH for a lower rate for January, February, and March, and jump off of PSNH and go back to their provider who can provide it at 8 cents or 7 cents. And what happened is that PSNH is getting wise to this. Number one, they're stopping us from doing that. Number two is that they got to make it up, so their rate increases are higher because they got to play for the winter rates. So what's happening is that we're seeing for traffic lights, which we don't jump off on, is one of the high one, the rates that are going up. In Jim's budget, wastewater, you'll see both his electricity and natural gas rates are spiking because of some of the stuff that's occurring.
Just to add, Rick and I a few months ago met with representative about LED streetlights and kind of where the industry is with that and whether it's time to start thinking about a shift towards LED technology for the heads. And you might be familiar with Manchester is going through some issues with the rate. They don't believe that PSNH's rate for maintenance costs is correct, so they think that PSNH is trying to jack the maintenance, so it doesn't look like quite such a good deal to convert over when in fact they believe it is. So once that rate is set, other towns will start to convert, I believe. The maintenance rate won't be set so high. So we'll continue to keep you posted on that if it looks like a way to go.
Okay.
Tom?
Yeah, does the PUC regulate that rate?
There was a rate that was established, and then Manchester had designs on converting quite a number over, and they were not happy with that rate, so I think that they took them to court. I'm not current on where that stands, though, right now, so.
Okay.
As of our meeting a few months back, it was not, they had gone back to a pending status.
And the increase in the capital reserve fund, what are you anticipating needing that you have to increase that by 210,000?
That's to cover our bridges that we
Yeah,
have
basically.
going forward. Bean Road, Bedford Road, and Route 3. That's just to cover the cost of those bridges, our 20% share of those bridges,
And 80% federal,
and 80% state or federal.
state federal.
So we've got them stacked for the next few years, and then there's a $10,000, of 10,000 of those dollars is for Opticom traffic light preemption. So we'd spent some money 2 years back and got through most of the town, but there's still some out there that, on the state intersections particularly, that they're not interested in putting the Opticom in, but they'll allow us to purchase the gear if we want to. So there's a few that we're still working on.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
On account, I'll find it in a second. Well, let me start with one that's in front of me. 8371, maintenance of buildings and grounds, MYA, and then back on page 71, 8222. I'm just a little confused about what grounds are we maintaining at 8322?
So 8322 includes any town parks or ball fields that aren't used by the MYA. So the big ball fields are Twardowski Field on Amherst Road and the
Okay.
ball field at Turkey Hill, the softball field. And then Matthew Thornton Monument area has some irrigation there. Veterans, Gibson Park, some of those areas that aren't used by the MYA.
Okay. Can I
Continue,
Can I
please.
continue? It's more a statement than a question, I guess. I appreciate the efforts that the town has made with the MVD in trying to reduce salt. I noticed your request from your department ticked up a little bit. I'm hoping that's because you're attempting to use more calcium products and they may be a little more expensive. I'm not trying to read anything into it.
Talk about 834, the 8341 line item itself. We
Yes.
had, we've kind of going at a couple different ways. We had a few big years, so our request was pretty close to the actual high 3 average, or the mid 3 average, I should say, the last 5 years. And that includes sand as well, so it's not strictly salt. But we've also started implementing the brine, sodium chloride brine, but it does put less salt on the roads itself, and we can kind of get that the anti-icing treatment before the storm comes. We've gotten into somewhat of a rhythm where we can get Continental Boulevard treated before most of the big storms, so that's helped cut down on some usage on that corridor. But as far as the amount of salt, really our request was pretty much just based on how much we've spent over the last 5 years, sand and salt overall. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And nature hasn't been all that kind to us with trees. We're going to have to remove more instead of let the ice and snowstorms remove them. Is that the reason for the tick up there? And I know it's no money, but
On the trees, that's true. Trees right now are anywhere between $750 to $1,000, sometimes $1,200 per on a tree that we can't take care of in-house. So anytime that there's a tree that either would be so big to fall on a power line or be within 10 feet of a power line, we're not supposed to use in-house staff to take care of that, just for the obvious danger. So we've
Thank you.
been farming those out, and they don't come cheap, unfortunately.
Well, while we're on the topic of trees, it has come up for discussion of other people. Whose responsibility is it to control the trees? I know PSNH, who's not PSNH anymore. They're going to be named something
Eversource.
different. Eversource. At least in my area town, has been cutting around where the trees are, and I know they have a system where they're going to be doing that. But let's say there are other trees that are overlying roads. Whose response? Is it the private property owner, or is it the town? I'm just curious.
It's case law is pretty sticky with trees. Very, very case dependent. If there's an imminent danger of a tree falling on the road, then there's actually shared responsibility between the people who are in charge of maintaining the roads, the town, and the homeowner upon which the tree grows. And then depending on if the homeowner knows that it's an issue, or if they were aware of it before it were to fall, then some other things come into play. But generally, if it's a road impact, we take it upon ourselves. If it's a danger to the traveling
Well, let's say it's not a danger, it's just a nuisance, that it's hanging low, but it's not,
Potentially could drop, right.
yeah, it's more
But
annoying.
Isn't
than-
there like an airspace from the road? I mean, if the town owns a certain road and straight up, is it our responsibility to somehow say, hey, it's in our road space, it's in the lines, or
I don't think
too much of a judgment call?
I don't think the RSA gets much into
Okay.
responsibility on an airspace or anything. If it would hit a reasonably traveling automobile down the road, then we consider it part of our job. But it's tricky.
And of course, the
Obviously-
homeowner can always refuse to have it touched.
If it's big
Fire.
enough,
By and large, any tree cutting you see will be the result of PSNH.
Because of what? I'm sorry.
They do the tree, they do
PSNH.
any of the,
PSNH,
crew.
right.
There's been an awful lot of tree
Right.
cutting since that last storm.
Right.
And that is, most of that work that you see being done in a huge capacity is
Right.
them.
Okay. I just have one really quick, I'm just surprised. Under the maintenance for vehicles, 8333, there's actually a decrease. Now, it's not much, it's only up 1,000, but that surprised me. Maintenance of vehicles, light and heavy equipment, is it that our equipment's in better shape but doesn't need maintenance, or?
I think that was the same. I think what you might see is we had overexpended in 13-14. Is that what you're referring to?
Ah,
The
gotcha.
102,941.
I understand, okay. Very good.
We have done pretty well with equipment replacement though in the last 4 or 5 years, so
Gotcha.
maybe even 10 years. So hopefully that does continue to go down as
Okay,
we get further along.
excellent. Any other questions? None. Okay. Let's move on to the next, which is solid waste disposal, which is number 9. Thank you, Adam. Rick just keeps on, stay there. Good evening.
Hello there.
Eileen?
As you can see, the staffing of the supervisory professional staff is exactly the same. Wages hourly has been adjusted up by, again, more in keeping with actual. At one point, we were, had a year when somebody wasn't in there for the full year. So that's one of the reasons for a small increase there. Overtime on professional supervisory, again, it's in keeping with trying to get it into a more reasonable place where compared to what it is. And the same thing with overtime is we have woefully inadequately budgeted that, hoping to make up for it in other areas, and we're trying to kind of catch back up with that. And if Paul could just speak to that in terms of the employee type that.
When solid waste calls in for overtime on a Saturday, if they're short a gentleman, they'll go to the highway department and say, hey, does anybody work on Saturday in the recycle building or in the transfer station building itself? The issue with that is that they already hit their 40 hours on Friday, so anybody who comes in on Saturday is on overtime. So when he's backfilling his positions for staffing requirements, it's mostly because he needs it, but it's on overtime. It isn't like he's pulling somebody from someplace where they're not at their 40 hours and they can adjust it, they're already at their 40 hours, and that's why the overtime line for that area is a little bit higher. Steve has been handling the overtime he can control, such as when the truck, when our tractor trailer goes up to dump our trash at the Pennacook, and things of that, Pennacook, stuff like that, he controls when they leave and when they come back so that they don't get, they're not leaving before the shift starts or things of that sort. So he's controlling the controllable overtime. It's the other overtime when somebody has a vacation day on a Saturday, it's 100% overtime.
Mhm.
Okay, on with the theme of retirement going up, health insurance going down. We have an increase in cost for electricity. Vehicle fuel is showing a decrease. And why is that, Paul?
The price of gasoline, as we can see at the pumps, is coming down. And what we budgeted last year it's a lower price that we're using on average for our gasoline and diesel right now.
Okay. Maintenance of vehicles and equipment, that relates to trying to make our trailers last longer, so that instead of getting, how many years were we getting?
Well, right now they're in the CIP to be replaced. We found that if we replace some of the sidewalls with some steel plating, we can get an extra 5 to 7 years out of the trailer, so that prolongs the life another 7 years
Okay,
for
thank you.
$10,000.
One of the biggest things in this budget is an increase of $15,770, having to do with solid waste disposal. That includes two factors. One is that our tipping fees per our contract are going up $1 per ton. And also we're now paying for recyclable materials, whereas before we 2 or 3 years ago, we were getting money, a little bit of money for them. This year, it was 0, and next year will be $5 per ton. So the combination of those two things increase the solid waste disposal.
So how much is it per ton, non-recyclable?
$66.
And that's just for disposal. And outside services.
That's our monitoring of our closed landfill that we had, the dump. We have to monitor that, and the costs go up with the monitoring aspects of it and regulations.
Another large one is $11,300 that you see under special handling. That is for increase in the number of electronics that are coming to the transfer station. You'll also see an increase in revenues to match that. And capital reserve fund expenditure purchases is what?
A new truck to replace an old GMC that's a lot of years old. I don't know. Steve might know how old that GMC pickup truck is.
It is a 1990.
Wow, we've gotten the money's worth out of
That
it.
truck does not owe the town anything.
Roll it in the back of one of those trailers.
We can sell it for scrap metal,
Maybe
probably.
get $500 for that.
If you never know.
All set. Would you gentlemen like to say anything before questioning? Yes,
Just a
Rick.
couple little things. As far as the electronics are concerned, the last time we looked at a full year, I don't know if you want to talk about revenues at this point, but,
Go right ahead.
okay. We had $33,000 in expenses for the materials that we shipped out. We only collected $22,000 in fees, so we're looking at an increase in the fees for TV disposal of $5 to go from $10 per set to $15, and that would close the gap in our revenue issues. We have in the past been lucky that vendors have come in and kind of saved the day. Samsung at one point was paying for a lot of the disposal at the transfer station. We've had other companies do the same thing, but the last year and a half, couple of years, we've been on our own. So we have obviously the deficit spending as far as TV sets. So we're looking at a 50% increase, or from $10 to $15 per set.
And Best Buy will take them off your hands for free.
We do
free.
tell the residents that by the time they get there, they say, I don't have time to do that, so they just pay the money.
So if you buy a TV at Best
No,
Buy,
they will take it. They will take them. Even if you don't buy anything there, they will take them. Yep.
Can bring,
as long as you bring it to them.
Right.
They charge you $10 and give you a $10 credit in the store?
I don't know anything about that. I know,
I don't know about that,
No, they used to do that. Oh, they did. They would charge you $10, and then they give you a $10 store credit. So, I mean, yeah, effectively for free.
Interesting.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that.
It is nice to know.
For computers.
Yes, Rick, go ahead.
One more thing we wanted to point out, if I could direct your attention to the 810 account under the wages area. We've been kind of shaking our heads and trying to find out ways to increase dramatically the amount of recyclable materials that we ship out of our facility. Every year, the amount of recyclables tonnage-wise goes up. We're up to about 1,475 tons per year of recyclables. I think it's 30 tons more than last year. So, we've done videos, we've visited schools, we've sent out brochures, we've sent out pamphlets to all the parents, et cetera, but there just seems to be like this, I don't know what you want to call it, there's maybe not a lack of enthusiasm, but maybe a lack of direction. So what we looked at, Steve and I were kind of racking our brains, and we thought, what about having a solid waste attendant? First of all, we said, well, we'd have to task that person with doing something that may be unpleasant at times, but if you got the right individual, it would be a good opportunity for somebody that would be at the transfer station looking at loads as they're being unloaded and say, sir, you've got a load of cardboard here. Could you take it to the recycle building? Or if not, I'll pull it off to the side here and put it in the recycle trailer or can or whatever, and we'll see if we can increase the amount of recycling. We thought, well, that's an expense to have an attendant because it costs so much. But then we thought, well, let's task ourselves with trying to get a goal of removal. So we said, what's a reasonable number that we can anticipate with somebody that is there 25 to, let's say, 28 hours a week? How many tons do you think they could actually help divert from the waste stream into the recycling area? And we thought, well, a few tons a week, maybe 200 per year. So then we said, okay, what's 200 a year and a tipping fee? It's $13,000. So that's why if you look at that line item, we have solid waste attendant at $11 per hour and a salary of $13,728, not including any bennies because there are none. And I'm sure there's some ancillary costs that are probably on top of that. But then we thought, we could try this as a kind of an experiment to see how well that went, see if we can get some more tonnage. Sometimes people are confused. They may just go by the recycling building, everything, I don't really want to go in there. I'm not sure how it works. I've never used it. It's easier for me to just go dump my bag of bottles. And if any of you ever just stood there for about a half an hour during the day and watch people throw things through the window, which Steve does on a constant basis, it's very frustrating to see people throwing recyclables on our tipping floor. Bottles, cans, huge amounts of newspapers, cardboard. So we thought it would be a good idea to have an attendant. And we could use it as, we could come back to you next year and say, okay, we think it would be hard to, to pin it down to that. But we know we're only getting 20, 30, 40 tons per year increase in recycling. If we could get, if we could bump it up another 200 or 300 tons, it saves the town money, maybe even more money than it would cost for that particular position. And Steve was going to talk about some of the tasks that person was going to.
they would also have, they could also be checking on, the items that we do charge the fees for, such as electronics, refrigerators. All of you have been there, everything's kind of spread out. There's only 6 of us there, including myself. And when it shows up is when you turn your back. So if we had another set of eyes there, that could help get the people that figure that, they're just throwing it, nobody sees it. So if we had another set of eyes there, it would give people a second chance to, actually do what they what they should be doing. For the most part, the residents are very good. They come in, they pay for it, but it's the few, the few bad apples that ruin it for other people, so. And also, we could use that person, we could cross-train them too. If somebody was out during a week, they could be working in the recycling building to help the recycling attendant. It would make us a lot more efficient operation if we could do that. And Rick and I both think it's a minimal cost, and I think it's worth at least a pilot. Give it a shot. If we come back next year, the tonnage numbers don't show, then you guys can say, this didn't work, we'll try something different. But the key is education. You gotta educate everybody. That's the thing.
Yes, Dan?
I agree with you completely, and I'll support it if you give me some signs. Signs. I've been begging signs for 2 years. I've been on these guys, and you guys have let me down. I want big, obnoxious signs, and you should have them right at the window or on the gate, on the fencing as you're leaving. Did you throw away paper? Did you throw away bottles? And it's like you said, they're driving by, they're not paying attention. I've seen it too. I've been a convert, as you know. Cardboard and paper is littering. It's tons. We're losing tons just on cardboard and paper that we see that we throw out.
The majority is the cardboard. The cardboard is, not only is it tonnage, it's bulk.
If you had those signs that I've been asking for a few years.
Have you noticed the signs we got in between each window up there?
They're too tiny. I'm talking about being obnoxious. You have to. You
So
have
we could
to
put a
be
sign
loud.
up here. We'll make
You
it
have
big.
You have to be neon. You have to be big. When they're driving away, and the fence is the perfect spot to be embarrassed. So it's the next time they come. So when they're driving away, they see the fence and they go, did I throw away paper, cardboard, bottles, cans? Because when you really get down to it, it's coffee grounds and banana peels you should be throwing away, because everything else is practically recyclable. And as I said, don't worry about, is it number 2, is it number 3, is it number 4? Let the downstream people figure that out, that you threw away the wrong plastic bottle. When in doubt, throw it out in the bin. Let somebody else, let them call us and say, oh guys, we're going to fine you $100 because you sent too much. Has that ever happened on your tenure here? Have you ever been called by the recycling centers?
We don't want to, because typically they'll ship the whole load back, and then
Well, so far it hasn't happened, though, has it? Right?
We've been fortunate.
I mean, years and years, and it hasn't happened. So
But
I'm
I
exaggerating to make a point, of course.
I attribute that to our
as I've been
staff
known
too.
to do.
They do separate a lot of the stuff out that doesn't
But
belong there.
I'm telling you, that that billboarding is, that fence is right there, and when they drive away, it will finally get them. And that's how you'll increase your tonnage. But yeah, 13 grand, I'm on board to have more of a police guy to help. If that encourages, but I won't back you unless you promise me some signs.
We'll put some signs.
one thing we didn't want to call them was policemen, because they're not policemen, they're assistants or attendants.
Of course, but
That's okay.
people, it's a touchy
Yeah.
thing. I know that's why I'm all for a pilot program, because maybe we get a rash of calls from people say, hey, get that creepy guy out of here, he's bugging me.
So if
You
I
know?
could,
I mean, because a good guy, a good worker is going to be bugging some people. That's fair. That's the nature of the job.
Well, you gotta
point out and say, hey,
educate
sir.
the people, and you
Yeah.
have to kind of not get in their face.
No,
but,
but-
you gotta
But
make
it is
your point.
the nature of the job is to bug
Right.
you, to say, sir, did you know you didn't have to throw away that cardboard? I mean, there'll be some kind of phrases I'm sure there'll be to use not to get people a little ticked off, but that's how it works, right?
Eileen? Oh, Bill, sorry.
I'm done, by the way.
Are you done, Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Bill?
If I overstep, I apologize. But we had a joint meeting here several months ago with the school board, and Council Woods can attest that I volunteered Ian's name to work as a liaison between the schools and educating the kids on the recycling program versus what you're trying to do down at the recycling center. I'm just wondering if anything has ever come about. Has there been any outreach with the school district in regards to trying to get something started to utilize a gentleman who I think happens to be very talented in the area of recycling?
Yes, we, when our recycling campaign was in gear, when we were talking about all the different things that we could do, you know, such as a recycling trailer and that kind of thing. One of the most important things on our list was to reach out to the schools and to see if we could get them to get the kids to bug the heck out of their parents, to, you know, and to put things up on their refrigerator and ask them, why aren't you recycling this and that kind of thing. So we went with Northern New England
Northeast
Resource Recovery Association, a representative from that company to go over to the school department and meet with Marge and all of her staff about the programs that were available for free and for nominal charge to them to get children to recycle. And they have programs, and they have, you know, they put things out on the lawn, and, you know, interesting kinds of stuff that are geared specifically to the schools. And I don't know whether or not they followed up on that.
And they haven't followed up since the September meeting either.
Thank you.
Yes, Eileen.
I just wanted to let you know that although I have removed the $13,000 number from the budget in my column, I also increased the solid waste disposal number by $13,000. So if you can look at solid waste disposal 01098355, Rick has asked for $483,200, and I have increased that to $496,400. So it's kind of a wash. So if you decided that you wanted to include the $13,000, you could just then remove it from the solid waste, assuming that the tonnage would go down.
And do you seem reasonably assured that will?
It's totally up to the council.
Oh, good answer. Non-committal. Yes, Lon?
I concur with a lot of what's been said. I may have been called names that I didn't know existed in the English vocabulary over a stint of time that I spent at the transfer station encouraging the public to do better with a lot of other things besides just recycling. I think we've hit upon something here that's at least worth giving a shot. I was an employee there when we had one more person out at the transfer station for a while, and while there are no records that say that things were taken care of better or people were encouraged to do, at least we had another set of eyes. And Steve said very well, generally the public takes pretty good care of that place, takes pretty good care of the effort for the community in general. But it doesn't take very many to spoil a lot more, if you know what I'm saying. Someone sees somebody get away with something, the next trip in, hey, nobody's looking, I know where the fellow is, or I know what's, I kind of sort of know the territory. I'm going to slip these 2 TVs in the trailer, and I'm gone, that kind of thing. So I don't have a problem with the effort. And so I would encourage it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, Bill?
I guess the question I would ask, I'm assuming that policing the swap shop's going to be part of their responsibility as well?
No, that'll be part of the rounds.
Okay.
Yes, John?
So did I hear you suggest that this person might also be able to fill in if there are folks missing or something? Does that impact your overtime budget potentially as well?
Not really. This would be during the week. This would be during the week if somebody's out and we're short-staffed in there. Right now, they end up working by themselves if they're short-staffed, because we have asked Highway in the past and they're not always available or able to give us anybody. So they either I go in and help them cover it. I mean, I've covered equipment, I've driven the trucks, I've done it all, and You know, we just do whatever has to get done up there, so. This would just make it easier on the recycling end. You could have somebody come in. Obviously, somebody in that position, you wouldn't be able to let them run the equipment, because that would be a whole other level, become a union issue, the whole 9 yards. So, you know, it wouldn't make sense unless they had some kind of equipment experience, but still, there's other hurdles there, so. This would basically be for, the other thing they could also do is ground maintenance, you know, blown trash, picking up stuff. I mean, we police it pretty well. The area's fenced in, but still, I mean, on a windy day, there's stuff all over the place. You've all seen it when you go up there. And whenever we can get out there, if I can get Pat, our scale operator, to go out, he'll do it. If the guys aren't too busy during the week in the recycling building, I have one of them go out and do it. It would just be nice to have somebody on a constant basis, keep the place neat, mow the grounds. Right now, mowing the grounds, I sit in the trailer, run the scale. I send Pat Davis out, our scale operator, to mow, and he does a fantastic job with it because he loves to do it. But, you know, again, we're thin.
Anything to get out of the trailer.
Absolutely. Right? You got to get him out. He goes stir crazy in there if I don't run him out. Right. Lon knows that, so. But it would be, you know, it would just make a lot more sense to, and it would make it a neat operation, a more efficient operation, I think at a minimal cost. I think it's worth giving it a shot. If it doesn't work, we come back here next year at this time, you say, it didn't work, it's gone.
I've already got a little note for next year. Was there a change? Yes, Dan.
Real quick question, just a quick update. Is the swap shop still a success?
It's busy.
Okay.
On Saturdays, it's
yeah.
But
do you think the way people are treating it, you know, they're not jumping off just garbage and
they
you know,
throw a lot of stuff in there. We just about every day we go through stuff that's in there that doesn't belong.
Is it a success?
Yes. Well, the whole idea was to get stuff out of that recycling building. In that respect, it's been a tremendous success.
Okay.
So it's out of there. The traffic's flowing through the recycling building a lot better than it ever has. So the rest of it's gravy if it works. So and so far it's worked well.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
Bill, did you have a question?
Yeah, just to dovetail off of Councilor Dwyer, I agree with his comments, especially with the swap shop, because I originally had a lot of doubts about the traffic in the swap shop area, people being able to get around and keep it flows very well.
The traffic is done well. My major concerns were on Saturdays, and the traffic, it does get crowded over there, but people are pretty civil. They let one another in and out of there. We haven't had any issues.
Yeah, it flows really well.
Yeah.
So it's a success story,
It's
so I'm
worked
happy
well.
to say that.
Mhm.
John?
So just to get onto another subject, and try and alleviate some of the complaints or the concerns that people have, you're telling us that it costs us now to get rid of recycles, $5
Yes,
a ton.
$5 a ton.
Which is a savings of $61 a ton based on what it would cost if they threw it in the transfer station.
Mhm.
What does it cost us to collect, sort, and deliver those recyclables? Is that $5 a ton part of all that cost, or is there additional cost overhead on top of that?
No, you'd still have the wages and, the electricity for the compactor and stuff. That's the tipping fee, $5 a ton to get rid of the recyclables.
Tipping fee, and they take it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
It's
is that tipping.
included.
The
The trucking's
$5 we
included.
get. We have a brand-new, big, large compactor that we've just received. We have, I don't know how many cans they drop off on.
There's 4 45-yard closed-top containers that they bring in. E.L. Harvey is our new vendor for the single stream, and they took it upon themselves. They installed the compactor. We had to do some changes in the wiring to make it work, but the trucking costs are they come pick the stuff up, no charge. That's all included in the $5 a ton. So it's a good deal.
Well, that's fine. I'm just wondering if we have any idea of the cost of running the recycle center per ton that we take in. That'd be awesome, because if it's, if it's $10 or $15, then we're still saving a huge amount. If it's 40 or 50, then it starts becoming questionable whether we're really saving that much.
Yeah, so Rick, if you, or Steve, if you could just put together something on the hours of the recycling attendants and that kind of thing, and associated benefits.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
On that
Yes,
note,
Paul?
we have one outside vendor that will come in with recyclables. And when we were getting it for $0, he would dump for nothing. We have since started to charge him the $5 fee to dump his stuff on the floor. There's recyclables on the floor.
So it's a wash.
So but we are charging that individual and any other individual who's a commercial hauler who's bringing in recyclables. They don't get it for free.
No,
They
get
actually
charged
are
the
paying
$5
fair.
a tipping
so.
fee, and Steve's group's already talked to him, and they've all agreed to it, so.
Yeah.
Just want to let everybody be aware of that.
Thank you.
The other question I have is the schedule that you're planning for the solid waste attendant. Are your plans related to high traffic times, like Saturdays?
We would
and-
probably have him work an 8-hour day on Tuesday and an 8-hour day on Saturday, and then those remaining hours, we would divvy up the rest of the week to, less traffic times. But Saturday, he would be there 8 hours.
Is Tuesday a busy day?
Tuesday is a
It is.
busy day because we're closed Sundays and Mondays, so we do get a lot of traffic on a Tuesday.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, yeah, Thursday nights it will be. But okay, yes, Bill?
Yeah, just one last question, I apologize, I think maybe more directed to Rick, but the the fee for the regional solid waste district, are we still getting good value for that? Because I know that's a significant amount of money. I
Yeah,
just want to,
it is a cost, but, did have a figure too, I should have brought it with me. As far as, it's tens of thousands of pounds of material that have been taken out of the towns, either going to the wastewater waste stream or to the solid waste stream. Merrimack probably has the highest, if you take the size of the town and the number of people who participate in the hazardous solid waste collection, we are probably at the top. We are, I shouldn't say we, but the town of Merrimack is way up there as far as percentage involvement. So I think we're getting pretty good value, and it's $10 per load, and you can bring up to, I think, 50 pounds per load, plus so many gallons of material. And that's all material that would end up going in either somebody's backyard where they dump it, or the trash, or down the toilet or the waste stream. So
The best way to look at it is, that number's right here, I think. It's 12,168 for
Right.
the solid waste district. Just keep in mind, like Rick said, it's not getting flushed down anywhere. It's easy enough for people to do this. And, they do use it quite a bit. And we do get the printouts of, town by town. We're one of the higher ones on the list that use it, so people are using it. It's working well.
okay. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Dan?
Just in kind of closing, I just want to say, Steve, you guys run one of the best departments in town, and I just want to say, I really mean that. I think you run such a professional operation. Everything is always in its place. The great employees, people in the community I just know are appreciative of what you guys do up there, and you just do a really top-notch job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
the guys work very hard.
I know they do.
They
Yeah.
give it 100% all the time.
And you guys are on top of everything. You really are. So
We
thanks.
try.
Anyone else? I guess you're off the hot seat for now.
Thank you.
Next is equipment maintenance, which is number 16.
You mean like this?
And Adam's back.
Kilroy was here.
Eileen?
Overall synopsis, you will see an increase, a decrease of almost $8,000 in wages for hourly employees, and that relates to a very long time employee leaving and replacing potentially that person with somebody that is paid less. The health insurance went down. the workers' comp went down, as we've been talking about. The other things are very minimal, and the total department shows a decrease of $11,539.
Okay, questions? Oh, first of all, do you have anything you want to add before we start asking questions? Tom, did you? Tom?
I just have a general question. You're talking about workers' comp and a reduction. Was that because the modification factor, or was it the amounts that they charge off per class, the classification amounts? Or are they just trying to bribe you?
Combination of both.
Bribing and
No, our classification costs have gone down, but just for instance, our modification rate for 14-15 was 0.66 or 66%, 0.66. For 15-16, because of our program with joint loss and our wastewater department, who had over 500 days or 5,000, how many days, Jim? 5 years worth of no loss time. Our rate is now 0.59.
So it's because of the safety record?
Because of our safety
Wow.
record in town.
Wow.
So,
And that's a lot of effort
right.
by the department employees to do that. And, it's something that, that's why I asked the question, where's it, what's the why? And, it's always been, because I used to work there, it's always been my pitch is one of the places you can save money. You can reduce your exposure in here if you pay attention and do what you do. And so, I know you've made a lot of effort over the last 5 years to do that. And it's starting to, when you're down at that level, there aren't too many other communities that are down at that level.
This is the lowest it's ever been here, in my 10 years. 0.59 is the lowest it's been. That's even when we combined with the school. This
Rick?
is the lowest.
If I could add to, Adams Department, Highway Department, has 2 years of no lost time, which is phenomenal for that. So I think all the departments have been very, Steve's, I don't know how long he's had, we've had very few injuries in-house. So.
Keep it up, everybody. We want everybody healthy. Big accomplishment. Thank you, everybody. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Again, equipment maintenance. Oh, sorry, Lon?
We're talking about equipment maintenance, right?
Correct.
Talk to me just a little bit about the problems or the change in what I perceive has to be a change in the way we operate a bit, given the number of computer operated or smart vehicles or smart trucks, whatever you want to call them. I see that becoming a bit of a problem for anybody trying to maintain the size and the variety of the fleet the town has.
There are some difficulties, especially with some of the new emission standards that the EPA has placed upon the manufacturers. So these, you hear Tier 3, Tier 4 emissions controls. Some of these systems are getting pretty complicated, so there are certain portions that we can work on in-house, and then certain portions that we have to send to the manufacturer, for a filter burns and that kind of thing. Some of the computer systems, particularly in the fire equipment, there's a few systems in there, and then the plow trucks, some of the spreader controls are operated by a computer, ground speed sensing and all that. So there are portions of, but gone are the days of a lot of micro miniature soldering and bench top work or any of that sort of thing. Usually if there's a bad circuit card, it gets sent back, and you put the new circuit card in and away you go. Mainly the work that we continue to farm out, though, is more just the larger scale things. If a bucket loader needs a new set of rims, that we need a lift big enough to get it up in the air, or if a fire truck needs to have equipment weight tested, we don't have that capacity either in training or in equipment. So there are a few things like that. By dollar for dollar, that tends to be most of what we send out of town. not so much the computer-related issues, knock on wood anyway.
Are the police cruisers any more at risk than other vehicles? In terms of if they quit, we can go fix them?
Not as far as being computerized and that sort of thing. I haven't seen a big uptick. I think probably because with the replacement cycle that we're on with the cruisers, the vehicle itself is wearing out before the component. We're putting more miles and hours on it than we are, time, which is what's going to be, the computer system. What's detrimental to that. So, I think we're staying ahead of that with the replacement cycle.
Thank you.
All set, Lon? Any questions on this side? None. I just want to make a comment. I like your tie. It's a Patriots
The alternative
ties.
wasn't good. They said so. I'm glad they won.
None of us have nails left. Okay, no questions. Okay, I guess you are done for
Thanks.
this evening. You're not coming back, are you? Oh, you're not gone yet, sorry. Rick is still here. Building and Grounds, number 17. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, Adam, not Rick. Okay, Building and Grounds, Eileen?
Okay, back to our old theme. Health insurance went down. Workers' comp went down. Unemployment went down. Electricity is showing a decrease. Gas. These are under $1,000 items for the public's edification. The largest amount of an increase was $10,000 in the maintenance of vehicles, which is to propose putting a dump body on the existing truck rather than purchasing a new one, which will be around $10,000. So the overall budget increase for buildings and grounds is around $8,300, and most of that are decreases, and part of it, the increase relates to that $10,000.
Would you like to say anything, Rick?
Just a couple little things to add to what Eileen said. We've got some, under buildings, 8502, last page of that particular budget, there's looking at another grinder pump for PD. There's currently 2. One of them has been replaced already. Another one's ready to fail. Carpeting at PD and some irrigation system at installation of a lawn. Additional items for buildings and grounds. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, any questions? Bill?
Just more of a comment. I think anybody coming through the center of town from April to November, and they look at what our town hall looks like, it's absolutely gorgeous. And I hate to single people out, but I know it's Phil Machino. He does a lot of hard work taking care of, quite honestly, what I think is one of our focal points in the community, our town hall, our courthouse. My wife and I, we drove to dinner last Friday night, and we saw the Christmas tree up on the at Abbey Griffin Park, and just the grounds leading up to it, just absolutely beautiful. So it's kind of, we look at, when we look at a number like this, it doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, it's like a drop, but there's a single person behind taking care of our center, the center part of our town. So I just want to publicly thank Phil and thank you for giving him what he needs to do to put on a really gorgeous facility here in the center of town. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Lon?
I just have to ask specifically, account 8321, maintenance of buildings, and janitorial supplies, electric and plumbing supplies, ice melt hand tools at 15.5. It just stands out to me as a huge number for what you're describing to me here in the backup. I could be very wrong.
If I could, Madam Chairman, that line item also includes pretty much all the janitorial supplies for all this building and the building next door. So that's quite a bit of materials, paper towels, soaps, and the like, equipment. If anything, that line item gets eaten up through the years for other items that may, fall under maintenance of buildings. If anything, we probably under budgeted that whole line item. This is definitely a, huge spending. Hand tools, probably not a lot. Ice melt, we do spend a lot of money on ice melt. We just got another pallet and it's, $20 a bag and almost $1,000 worth just for ice melt. Just came in. So I don't think it's excessive. We certainly, since we've started to do janitorial services through town staff, part-time staff, we've reduced the amount of janitorial supplies that we've needed overall as compared to the contractual people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All set, Lon? Yes, John.
So talk a little bit more about ice melt. Is that a necessary, important thing? I mean, we on the planning board tell people they can't use ice melt in their neighborhoods because of the damage it's doing to the water supply, and yet you're talking about pallets of bags of ice melt that we use around town hall.
We use it only on the sidewalks. We might throw some of it in front of the sidewalks leading to a parking lot, but we don't use it it's not spread around like the large parking lot out here. It's mainly kept to the pedestrian areas. We buy material that is pretty much environmentally. It's not a chlorine-based material. It's a magnesium. I can't remember, oxide or something. So it's safe for lawns. It's safe for sidewalks and the like.
Is it more expensive then because you're doing that?
Not really. We go out and we've gone around and shopped the areas for getting material, and we get pretty good deals on material. So, especially when we buy a pallet of it, and hopefully we won't use it all, but you never know.
Do we need that because of drainage problems? We got a lot of water running across sidewalks or something? Or
No,
are
it's
we
just
not
like
clearing this?
tonight. There's obviously material already on the sidewalks just to keep the water from freezing. Just to protect people from falling in the parking lots. And that's the main reason. It's not as much for vehicles, obviously. It's mainly for pedestrian crossings and the like.
Well, but any of that ends up in the water system, and that's why we're trying to reduce all that.
Definitely.
Hopefully
yeah.
we're doing what we can here. I mean, we talk about the amount we're using here, but hopefully we're clearing as much snow and whatnot as possible and avoiding
Typically,
having to worry about
it's
melting.
never used on top of snow. It's usually used on dry pavement. So if Phil's out there shoveling, or he'll clear the walkways with this shovel or snow blower, and then he'll put this material down just to keep it wet from accumulating any more snow. So, I mean, if anybody's judicious about using materials, this gentleman is. So.
Yeah, I know
Certainly
he
not
is, and
wasting
I'm
it.
just bringing it up because I know there are people watching that come before the planning board, and we have these discussions
Mhm.
quite a lot, and I don't want them turning around and saying, well, the town doesn't even pay attention to their own requirements.
Oh, no.
I'm hoping we are paying attention to it as best we can, but
Yes.
we've had drainage problems in the past where we've had water coming from the roofs and running across the sidewalks and stuff. Have we pretty much gotten those under control, or?
I think so. With the new shed out here for the staircase, that's helped a lot. We still have icing issues because we obviously have, wet areas from storms or rainstorms and the like. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions? None. Okay, so that takes care of equipment maintenance. No, building and grounds. Next, wastewater treatment fund, number 10. Oh, sorry. See? Make that 31.
Oh, it's 10, it's just next to 32.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep. It's between 27 and 32. That makes perfect sense. It was a test, wasn't it? Okay, Eileen.
Just want to see if it's,
See
you're
if I'm-
tired if you're still short.
I haven't got the retirement brain yet. It'll
Not-
be here shortly.
Not to be redundant, but the wages, one of the things you see, $11,000 decrease in wages hourly, has to do with a longtime employee leaving and replacing them with someone that doesn't have as high a wage. Same thing with part-time, Jim?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Social Security went down because of those wages. Retirement went up. Health insurance went up. And again, most of your employees are in the AFSCME union no? It went down. I'm sorry. Sorry, it went down. Workers' comp went down a little bit. Compensated absences went down by $22,000, which relates, what we do is set money aside for paying people for when they retire. So when they retire, they get half their sick time and they get, their vacation time and everything like that. So we accumulate an amount of money in a separate account on the balance sheet. And when this person retired, we no longer have that liability for that person, so we reduce that. And electricity up, obviously much more effect. It's a much larger effect than any of the other departments because of the amount of electricity that they use. Gas down, that's natural gas or gasoline.
That's up. 25,000 is up. That's up.
What
That's
kind
natural
of gas? Natural gas. Water is up, and does that relate to Pennachuck's water rates increasing?
Some of that, and it's also due to our compost facility upgrade. The fire department required a second fire hydrant out there, so that means there's additional testing and a charge for having that second fire hydrant.
And I'll just let you finish the rest of it, Jim.
Okay.
I was going to say, go ahead, Jim. You've got the floor now.
All right. Well, Rick had some lead-in.
You can start it. Well, I'll just finish them. We have a pickup truck, a 4x4 pickup truck under capital items. Jim has manhole sewer line repair is listed in the back end of the budget, and also he's looking for a Bobcat for a cross-country sewer maintenance. A revenue item we're looking at based on the sewer financial model that we have, based on costs and loans and the whole deal. We're looking at a sewer user rate increase by 8% for businesses and homes this year. We did not have a rate increase last year. So this is 2 years. It'll be 2 years that we haven't had one. So we're looking at an 8%. The model is pointing at 8% as far as keeping our reserves in balance that we want to have them, and also taking care of all operational and financial costs for the facility.
I think Rick pretty much touched on the the highlights of the budget. A lot of the driver is due to capital fund purchases that we'll have this coming fiscal year. A couple of large ticket items that, the facility will be 45 years old this coming May, and it's, we're doing upgrades now, but, as time goes on, equipment wears out. We have replacement of a flow measuring device at Anheuser-Busch, which is in there, some coatings for concrete that's corroded. There's a sewer pipe from their facility that connects to the main interceptor that needs coating on it. So we're looking at that. Then the cost of the utility vehicle, we're currently in the second year of our sewer easement clearing project. EPA requires that we maintain all sewers in town, whether they're cross-country or in the street. So that utility vehicle will enable us, once our contractor has all those clears, we'll be able to go out and maintain those lines. We'll be able to inspect the manholes with our sewer cameras, inspect the lines, and then, get out 2 or 3 times a year to make sure that those sewer easements are maintained properly, so that we don't experience the overgrown situation that we ended up in.
So that's the Bobcat?
Yeah,
that
that's the
you're talking about?
Bobcat, right.
Anything else?
That's
set.
about it.
Questions? John?
So, Jim, what's the life expectancy of the Bobcat at $75,000?
I would say that we'd at least get 15 years out of it or longer. You know, that includes a bucket and what I'd call a flail mower, that as you have undergrowth that's starting to come up, you can put all kinds of attachments on this vehicle. It also has a bed in the back so that we could take out our camera equipment. If it were just clearing, you know, we might look at, well, can we just contract it out? But it would be far more than that because of the need to go out, inspect the sewer manholes. You know, you have the bucket attachment. If you have sinkholes around a manhole, you can bring material in, you can fix it. So it would do a lot for us, and it would be a long-term vehicle. Plus it includes, the cost includes a trailer so you can transport it. It would be street legal, so we have certain cross-country easements that you could actually drive to, so you could do a drop-off point and then go from point A to point B without necessarily having to, you know, move it onto a trailer and then move it to the next spot. So I see that as a real good investment for the town that's going to last many, many years.
And the 4x4 pickup for $35,000 is replacing, obviously, a 2005, is that right?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
The truck is still running. We've done some extensive work, but essentially it's rusted. I mean, we use it for sanding as well. We plow our own roads at the treatment plant and at the pump stations. And 10 years on a pickup truck like that, it's had a hard life. And you know, I would recommend that on these type of vehicles, a 10-year cycle is pretty reasonable. We had to do some extensive work on it just to keep it running for another year.
Okay. And the increase in the transfer to capital reserve fund?
Perhaps Paul
From
could speak to
25
that.
to 75,000?
That's based on the capital needs that Jim has presented, the smaller items that Jim has presented, such as the pickup trucks, the Bobcats. Jim also has 3 cat loaders that are getting near end of life that we got to start looking at replacing. And he has several other pieces of equipment that are getting towards end of life that need to be replaced.
Okay.
Jim, the cat loaders are 7, 8 years now.
They'll be 9 years old this coming year. So.
And the environment they're in, it's not like they're at just picking up dirt and dumping dirt into a truck. They're in a chemical environment that, you know, at 10 years, they seem to be starting to wear out some of the bushings and some of the electrical components on them, and they can start getting very costly.
Oh, are these the machines you used to replace every 3 years or something like that?
Yeah, we used to have a buyback on those, which we no longer have. It wasn't cost effective to maintain it, so then we ended up, because we owned the vehicles, we just kept them at that point.
Okay. But we're putting money in capital reserve to replace them?
To replace them, right.
And
Yep.
and that's part of this increase, is to make sure that works out?
Yes.
Right, and that fund is really depleting fairly quickly.
Right,
So
right.
that's one of the reasons why we needed to beef it up.
Yep. Yeah, the goal is always to maintain a $2 million fund balance, which includes the capital reserve fund plus the unreserved fund balance, which gives you money for cash flow and then emergencies as well. I mean, if we lost the main generator for some reason, that could run you $250,000 easily. So when we presented the rate study and that was approved in 2009, that was the target numbers. That's what we look to do. Is we're always trying to maintain that roughly $2 million fund balance.
And the increase that you talked about is part of the rate study?
It is, that's correct.
It's been planned in all along?
Right, it presented a model for us to use that we could plug numbers in, look at, you know, projections of expenditures and revenues, and then, you know, you try to project out as best you can. it kind of looks at the 6-year plan, just like, you know, the CIP. So you plug in your numbers, and then, you know, it's hard to go out too far, but, you know, within a couple of years, I think we've been pretty accurate since that was approved by council back in '09.
Okay, thank you.
Dan?
You mentioned the plant being 45 years. What do you foresee as the next 3 to 5 year plan as maybe your biggest challenge? And financially, is it the main generator, or, you know, what do you foresee may be the biggest threat to a facility that is getting aged?
Well, we've taken a phased approach to making improvements. Back in 2007, we did what we called our Phase 1 upgrade, which was to upgrade part of the facility. Currently, we're doing Phase 2, which was approved at town meeting in 2012. That should be completed by October. And then 5 years down the road, to speak to your question, it'll be Phase 3, which will finish up a complete overhaul of the treatment plant, because right now we're still running pumps and equipment that are, you know, essentially 45 years old. So, you know, we've maintained it over time, but they're less efficient. Flows have changed quite dramatically. Anheuser-Busch reduced their flows, so they're oversized. So what we're looking at doing in Phase 3 is we'll have 2 loans that are 10-year loans. They'll be retired in 2020. So when you drop that expense out, then you're looking at, you know, Phase 3. So it helps to stabilize the sewer rate by dropping out loans, and then before you take on new debt.
Is Phase 3 like a report that's already out there? It's like it's already something that's already been thought out in names.
Yeah, everything.
It's a little nitty gritty for us, but
right.
But you can point to a file. Hey, here's Phase 3, and this is what we're going to be doing when the time comes.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
We did a comprehensive plan evaluation back in 2010, and it basically laid out a roadmap for us to follow. So that's what we've been doing, and that's what the state requires, because we use state revolving fund money. And they require that you have a plan, you know, going forward of what equipment you're going to replace and when you're going to replace it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now, Rick, you can retire. Parks and Rec, number 13. Did he? I didn't see it. Good evening, Matt. Eileen?
Right. The total budget increase, or it was actually a decrease. The budget for Parks and Recreation decreased by $1,782, and that is the result of primarily a decrease in health insurance of $1,100. And again, with electricity and gas have gone down a little bit, which Paul can explain. Telephone went up, which Paul can also explain. And everything else is approximately the same, except the part-time wages of the secretary have gone up. Is that right? Part-time wages, is that Kelly?
That is lifeguards, Matt.
Oh, lifeguards.
Matt actually has a plan that he'll share in a little bit about weekend lifeguards, I believe. To talk about natural gas, MYA building was converted 2 or 3 years ago from oil to gas. The reason why it's down a little bit, a couple $100, due to the fact that we're really honing on their gas usage. It isn't estimated anymore. We got a couple of years that we can actually see what their usage was. Same thing with electricity. We've been, Tom's been doing a great job of keeping how many kilowatts we're using per building and electrical cost, and we kind of started honing down. There's some sprinklers, lightings with the field lighting and things of that sort, so we were able to hone down, and it's not just they're estimated, but it isn't a pie-in-the-sky estimate. These are honed down to actual uses over the last 4 or 5 years. For that, telephone went up due to the fact of a cellular phone going to a smartphone for Matt versus the old flip phone. so to speak, that the old director had, Matt, you know.
Former director.
Former director had, sorry.
Yeah, easy with the old.
The former director had, and basically, same thing, it's a smartphone, it gets you his email, if he's away, if there's a problem, he can go pull a file and look at things of that sort if he's at a conference or anything to go along with that. And that's all I got.
Matt, would you like to present anything?
Sure. Obviously, I wasn't here a year ago. I wasn't involved in the process of putting this budget together last year. So, you know, when I started this year, it was, one, obviously looking at a level funded budget, but two, you know, kind of starting zero-based in what do we need to actually provide every line of service. And what I was finding is in some cases, we were over budgeting what we really need. You know, it had, you know, estimates for people making a lot more than they were actually making. In other cases, like when we get to the day camp, the wages for counselors were grossly under representative. So I kind of went through, you know, line by line and kind of worked all of that out. As Paul alluded to with the, you know, the part-time wages, a couple of different adjustments that I've recommended for this year. Our tennis program has kind of taken off. We've got waiting lists, and so it was an expansion of that program. The biggest change, though, was looking at the addition of restoring weekend lifeguard coverage at Wasserman Park. It's 3 or 4 years, I'm told, it's since there was last staff there. I was there probably about half the weekends in the summer this year, and on any given weekend, there was, you know, a couple hundred people in the park, and half of those were down at the beach. And so it always kind of makes me nervous that, you know, you have that kind of crowd, and you don't have, you know, assistance there. You know, when I was here before you a few weeks ago, right before Christmas, with the parking project that we talked about, obviously once that opens up, that's going to make the beach even more accessible, you know, more attractive. So realistically, the waterfront's only going to get busier. So what this would do for weekend lifeguard coverage is basically 3 staff, a manager, and then 2 guards underneath that manager, and the manager being a guard themselves, which is kind of the minimum you would need for staffing levels. Just, you know, if you've got somebody out at the bathroom, you basically have one covering the beach, one covering the docks, and then one covering the first aid, bathroom, lunch breaks, you know, those kinds of things, for 9 weeks during the summer. And so that was, you know, kind of my main concern this year. Like I said, the other ones, the adjustments in the other columns were simply putting in what we needed for existing levels of services. So not increasing, not decreasing anything, not the skate park maintenance, you know, those kinds of things, but just kind of keeping, you know, existing levels of service. But what the net result of that is, we're only looking at about a $1,600 increase in wages in order to have weekend lifeguard coverage. I don't know how far you want to go. That's. Okay. I have a question too.
Absolutely. Dan?
As he's mentioning that, I wasn't here, so I think it might have happened the year before I started, but the question, anybody with the institutional knowledge, why were they cut? I can't for a reason, if that was the money, it doesn't sound like an overload. Does anybody know why they were cut in the first place, or why they stopped doing it, or?
There were probably 2 reasons. One was the expense, and the other was, at the time, trying to find qualified candidates for those positions. I don't know whether Paul is.
Yeah, a lot of the weekend coverage was done on overtime, so the overtime numbers shot up. The qualified candidates was another one, and then
Overtime to like who? Current staff?
Well, yeah, because they would work there 40 hours during the week.
As like
and
a
then,
camp counselor who had a lifeguard certificate or something?
well, no, they were lifeguard
Oh.
people, and then on the weekends they would come in, and
So-
somebody would be there, and they'd get called in and
Yeah.
work the overtime, and it was
Okay.
overtime was getting a little bit expensive for that, more so than the benefit.
Just the season sounds so short, a few weeks, the money just,
And-
I can't imagine if it was like
Yes.
$2,000 or I just
But
don't
if it's
know.
overtime, it's a lot more.
And they were doing it
Oh,
not for 9
oh.
weeks, but the full
9
16
Okay.
starting
Oh.
and going all the way.
Oh, okay,
That's right.
okay.
through, so the cost was 2030.
Okay. Oh, all right.
And my
Thanks.
goal, through you, Madam Chair,
Please.
my goal obviously would be to hire specific staff for weekends, so that we don't have that overtime issue. And I've done this in prior positions, so I'm.
So the
confident.
challenge you might have is finding them. You may put out an ad in the paper or other means, and then you may not get people to take the job.
Maybe not, but I don't think that'll happen.
Okay.
And we chose the 9 weeks so because it mirrors what we're currently doing on weekdays, which is basically 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So
Around
just
4th of
kind of-
July or the week before July.
Basically, week
Yeah.
before, and then through middle of August when we tend to lose everybody because they go back to school or, that type of thing.
Thanks.
If you have more to share, go right ahead.
Okay. Moving down, Paul had mentioned that the cell phone budget went up, but the telephone budget went down. So, of course, but in the grand scheme of things, the overall budget went down for that particular line item. Moving down to kind of our programs, again, we were more or less looking at level funding. We went down on what we thought we needed for the Easter egg hunt, but went up on Halloween. We've been getting about 600 to 800 people at some of these big community events that we're running. But I've got a pretty good, comfort level with what we have, based on these numbers, moving forward. I didn't want to put in a lot of requests for, new programs this year. We are trying to work on the revolving fund, which we talked about a few weeks ago. And I have some ideas, but I'm working on a policy to present to Paul and Eileen to cross our i's and dot our t's and, those kinds of things, before we get to that.
Lon?
So, am I to understand you haven't cut any of the recreation programs?
No.
You're just reflecting what you hope is a more accurate
Yes.
cost? Thank you.
And then moving down to, and my pages aren't numbered, so there's kind of two new areas at the bottom of the budget that I've added in. One is the 01138-504 office equipment. This is for the purchase of new recreation registration software. Right now, we do everything in Excel, which slows us down. It's on a 10-year-old computer that might die tomorrow,
It's amazing.
We
It's
don't
like
have
this
a
one.
central database, so every time, if somebody registers for this program, we gotta go back and search for it to find, phone numbers or email addresses or that kind of thing to cross-market to other programs. Ultimately, what registration software will do eventually will allow for online registration and the ability to take credit cards,
Web.
but that's kind of the first step in the process that we need in order for that stuff to move forward. And that's about a $3,000 expense. I've looked at a number of different softwares. I've used a number of different softwares out there. They all cost right around this amount. So it would streamline our office. It also gives us, automatic backups and, those kind of things which we currently don't have because our office shifts twice a year from town hall over to the park. So, and then lastly, we have a infrastructure improvement looking at Veterans Park. We've gotten a lot of calls this past year about the boat ramp. And, people's residents' safety concerns with, if you've walked down there, it's, kind of big, loose stones.
Horrible.
I rolled my ankle the day I walked down it. I mean, it was nothing, it was fine, but I can't imagine trying to carry a canoe down that or, something like, or kayak or, those kinds of things.
Someone made a mistake. They put down some huge rocks down there. It's a hazard.
Yeah.
It should get, as soon as the snow melts, I hope it's taken care of. They put this, what's called like rip rock, and
Yeah.
it's totally inappropriate for the boat launch. But thank you for mentioning it.
Sure. But I've had conversations with DPW, Conservation, and also the Nanticoke Lake Association about, what's a better way to solve this kind of on a more permanent basis. DPW does a lot of temporary solutions. Every time we get a big rainstorm, they end up having to go back and fix it and try to make it a little better. It gets a lot of ruts. It's just temporary fixes. What we found is basically a precast concrete, here's my sheets here, and I will pass this over so you can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about here. Precast concrete boat ramp that would extend basically from the crest of the hill down into the water, so that it would make this a much easier to use, much easier to navigate, and kind of solves that erosion issue as part of the, so the $85 in the line item would be basically to purchase in this, with the work being done by Public Works. The other thing that the Lakes Association was looking at was looking at putting in a dry well off to the side to kind of help with some of the runoff. And so we're still kind of working that out, but this would kind of solve the big part of our problems on a more permanent basis.
What number are we talking about?
Very last one, 8505. 0113805.
8505, Nancy.
Page 87.
Or 8,500.
We don't have pages on the computer.
It's the very last
Gotcha.
one.
Yep, I gotcha. Okay, so that has been proposed by you.
The 8,500 is the estimate for the purchase of the concrete
Yes.
ramp?
Yes.
That's good, because that number matches the other one above it, too easy for me, but.
Okay, now this electricity at the pavilion, that's done, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's where you're talking about?
Yes.
Just, okay. Because I'm going, wait a minute, there's two 8,500s.
Tom's smiling, he's heard me say the same thing before.
Okay, so it's,
Could have been 8475 and I would have bought it.
this looks good. Would this make you happy, Dan?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
very much.
We like to make Dan happy.
And for the record, it would last decades.
Oh, yeah. I
They do.
understand.
It's such the right thing to do. I kind of just have to shake my head why it wasn't done years ago.
It makes sense, though.
It really, it's for the money. We'll all be long gone, and that thing will still be there. Even you, Bill. Because he's so young.
Oh, yeah.
Compliment.
Okay, anything else, Matt, you wanna,
Not at this moment.
way you're ahead? Okay, questions? We've already asked Bill.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Matt? Maybe it's just me, it's fuzzy math, but can you help me? The overtime reduction, $680,
Yep.
and you're adding lifeguards on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And adding the lifeguards on weekends should eliminate any potential overtime.
Last year, the only thing we used it for was 4th of July.
Okay. So the number that I'm looking at here is a 4th of July number and shouldn't say it should say 4th of July and not lifeguards on there.
Realistically, yes.
Okay.
It had previously said, both, so
Okay.
I left it.
Okay. The second question is it's not, I don't know how I can make a budget related, but regarding the skateboard park,
Mm-hmm.
have you figured out, does your budget include, here we go, does your budget include the ability to have the park open on holidays?
It covers, we had covered, we didn't initially this past year cover Memorial Day. We did cover Labor Day. We did not cover 4th of July. 2 years ago on 4th of July, they struggled to get staff to begin with. And then 2 kids showed up the entire day that it was opened. And I didn't think that was a very good use of resources.
Of course, you could have 3 lifeguards hanging out at the 4th of July down to Wasserman Park and nobody could show up as well.
Right. Well, you could, but
I'm just thinking it's, the holidays are a unique day for the kid to get out and be able to do something. I just would hate to have a resource available that's not available to them when
Yeah.
when they're doing something constructive.
Okay,
Just something for you to consider.
sure.
Done, Bill? Or do you have anything else?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
You
sorry.
wanted to
Well,
make
Bill,
a
I want to make a comment on
Dan?
your comment. I could solve your problem, and we can make a policy that you open the park without an attendant.
I'd be open to that.
I've been open that all along. I think the attendant's important, but in order to, I think also having an attendant 80% of the time there is still fine. But we've been very strict about keeping it only open with the attendant. And if you wanted to have holidays and if you want to have extended hours, we could, as a body, make that decision.
I think we should.
I do. I've always
really
felt.
do.
I've always felt that way. But
I'd want to hear the pros and cons to that, that's all.
yeah.
I mean, obviously.
But that is a way to.
There's an
you
insurance
wanna
factor, I get that.
There's a liability,
There's a
and
liability
there's a
issue.
maintenance, having a person there to make sure that there's not damage done.
Yep.
I mean, it may not happen, but I think those are
Right.
some consequences that need to be identified.
It's always been the subject of, the kids doing what they're going to do to a skate park, whether they're doing that or a basketball park, or it's a philosophy choice. You either give the kids some freedom to wreck it on their own or not. And if they wreck it, then you close it down. There's all kinds of things to do,
True.
but thanks.
Madam Chair,
You
can
all
I
set?
just make a comment on that
Absolutely.
point, actually, on Dan's point? There are 37 municipally owned skate parks in New Hampshire. There are only 2, counting us, that staff theirs. The other one is the town of Meredith, and they only staff it on weekends. The
Interesting.
pretty much every other town, basically, it's left open all the time.
Yeah.
And some have minor amounts of vandalism. I know of one community that did shut theirs down because they had significant maintenance, but most towns, it's just a minor issue, and so they deal with, the graffiti and those kinds of things.
Interesting.
But we're one of only 2 that do provide staffing.
We're so strict. Lighten up.
I mean, sitting in Nashua had, when they did have their skate park, used to be open from 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. I could be driving by there at 9:30, 9:45, 10 on a summer night, and the kids are out there skating. The lights are on,
Yeah.
having a good time.
So it's probably worth a discussion.
I believe it is worthy of a discussion, Madam Chair.
Okay, anything else, Matt? Oh, Bill, actually, you said you might have more?
I'm good for now, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Matt, anything else?
No.
Okay, anyone? Eileen?
Thank you.
Well, okay, I was going to. You want to do that, but is there any questions regarding this section? Okay. Next is day camp, which is, it's under other special revenues after the 33, which is fire protection. I did catch that one.
I want to keep you guys on your toes so you actually look at the whole budget.
Well, I guess I did. At least
Who do you think you are?
Nobody.
Okay, so let's talk about let's see, the day camp, which is 2013, 8375, right?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay.
Or Eileen, I'm not sure.
Did you have anything?
Have Matt?
No.
Okay.
As I said, similar with the other programs, I kind of started from the beginning with the budget and, what are we actually spending? What are we actually, like I said, at one point, when I came in, I'm looking at it, I'm going, okay, there's 25 counselors and there's only $25,000 allocated and they all work 40 hours a week for 8 weeks. That doesn't look right, And so I, again, started from the beginning, worked through the budget, and overall it's slight savings, a slight drop from last year, but it's a realistic number. Our day camp numbers do fluctuate from year to year, and obviously our goal is to be, entirely self-supporting with that, and so I think this is a reasonable number based on that.
This also does have an increase.
Yes.
The enrollment numbers are down a little bit from years past. And we looked at the enrollment numbers versus this $174,000 number, and there is gonna have to be a little bump
Yep.
in that, and Matt, do you have those numbers?
Yeah, we had looked at it, essentially a $10 increase, which, you know, for this year, which basically gives us a little bit of a cushion to make sure that we are hitting that $174,000, you know, so that we are making sure the camp is self-supporting.
Now, how much is the camp, how much does it cost?
Our expenses is $174,199.
For a 1-week session,
Yeah, how
Yep.
much for this? yeah.
It goes from $185 to $195 per week for a resident, and $237 to $247 for a non-resident. And that includes lunch and also swimming lessons. So we're in the market, you know, for example, if you look at the YMCA Camp Sargent, their rates are a little bit cheaper, but one, they don't include lunch, and two, they don't include the swimming lessons, which is an added fee. And when you start putting in those, they're actually higher than we are. So we're competitive.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, anything you want to add?
Not at this point, no.
Questions? Yes, Dan.
It's more of a comment. It's just find it funny that even like the school districts and the union leader the headline, we have less students, but it costs more money. So that's all I have to say.
I'm going to leave that alone. Yes, Bill?
I'll take my question offline, thank you.
Okay.
You didn't see the editorial.
Anyone else? No other questions? So your first time before us wasn't too painful?
Well, he was here for the last budget meeting,
Sure.
but it wasn't his budget, but he was here, in
Technically,
theory.
it was here, yeah. I
Okay.
just didn't create it.
Yeah, you didn't create it. There you go. Okay, thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Eileen, is there anything else to discuss?
No.
Okay, well, apparently.
Motion to
Okay.
adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn made by Bill Boyd, seconded by Lon Woods. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 6-0-0. Thank you very much. Good night.